I'm confident that customers will come back. I'm confident that the industry will fight back, and we'll be, in a year's time, we'll be hopefully back to some sort of normality. But my biggest fear is the labour shortage that we will now face with these international pool that we had that will no longer be available to us. Yeah, that's going to be a real issue.
This week on Dirty Linen, we continue to speak to people in Victoria who are, of course, as we all are, affected by the pandemic and our very slow road to recovery, although it does feel like we are getting somewhere. Jason Jones, who owns Entrecote and a number of other restaurants around Melbourne, has been a really prominent voice through the pandemic. I've really appreciated his passion for the industry and his fervent desire to reopen and welcome customers and do hospitality in the way that he loves. Jason, how are you going?
Dani, I am good. Very good.
That is good. It's such a charged question at the moment, just to ask somebody how they are. I just feel like it's always the wrong question, but on the other hand, it's the only question. So,
well, it's nearly the end of the day, so it's nearly 1 o'clock. So as the day gets closer towards that time, it's always better.
Yeah, great. Well, tell me what every day is a month, and every day is different at the moment, as well as in a strange way also being a little bit the same. But tell me what you've been doing today.
Oh, today actually was a full day meeting with my management team. So there's 4 of us in the upper management team, which sort of control all the different venues. And it was pretty much today mapping out what we think the government are going to be allowing in the next month. So we've sort of decided to go for worst case scenario, which is what they gave regional, what the government have opened up to regional, which is I think 20 inside and up to 50 outside. And then I suppose we're heading towards that, and anything that they decide to give us more than that would be, I suppose, a bonus, which would be great, really.
So, what kinds of things does it entail? You've got 4 quite different venues. What kind of conversations do you need to have, and what sort of things do you need to consider? What sort of variables are at play?
Well, we can have 4 different conversations because each venue is just so absolutely different. They've got 4 venues and they're all completely, separate sort of entities in themselves. So, I mean, that biggest ship is obviously Entrecote. And we were lucky enough to have that 5 weeks opening in June, where we sort of got a sample of, I suppose, what might happen when we reopen for the next stage. We were incredibly overwhelmed by the response of reopening in June. We really were booked out pretty much for the 5 weeks within the first week or two, which was quite overwhelming. We weren't sure, how much. What am I trying to say? That the consumer confidence would be in going out after a pandemic or still in the middle of a pandemic. But we found that there was confidence and people were happy to come out and dine. And I mean, we're social humans, we're social beings. People just can't wait to get out and see each other again. And now being in this lockdown that we've been for the last 117 days or 120 odd days or something, I think more than ever, and coming up towards Christmas, people are going to want to get out. But it does have to be in a safe, regulated way. So, because the last thing we want, just like the government, is a third wave. So
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, just for people who don't know your restaurants, just tell us about the 4 businesses and what's different about each of them.
The mothership is Entrecote, which is a French steakhouse in the old. The easiest way to explain it is the old Lynch's restaurant in it's a main road, South Yarra, which is sort of our biggest sort of business. And then we have Stamford Park, which is a beautiful old homestead, which has only been open a year just before COVID hit, on 6 acres in Rowville, which is about 25 minutes from the city for those that don't know that way, on 6 acres. So we spent 3 years renovating that, and it's a gorgeous old homestead with our own vegetable gardens and that. So it's been, ever since the COVID hit, it's been in closure, in sort of lockdown mode, until we decide what we can do moving ahead with social distancing with that venue. And then Boozy, which is a little French wine bar in historic King's Arcade in Armadale. And we've just reopened it only about a month ago. There's no way of really opening it as a wine bar again, simply because of the social distancing regulations. It's the same as, like, if a classic example is saying Francois. They will not really be able to open. I was talking to Jean-Paul just last week, and he said, how can they open Francois for 18 people with a 1 to 4 square metre ratio? The atmosphere completely goes. It's not what we do. So how do we reopen? And we're the same with Boozy. It's got such a small footprint for us to open and set up a team. And, we haven't got the team because we've lost 60% of our team during this whole period, because being European restaurants, we have lost 60% of our staff because they held on. A lot of them we supported, and we held on to them in the first lockdown, so they were available to come back and work when we reopened. But unfortunately, the second lockdown has seen a majority of our European staff head back home. So it's
I want to come back to that. Just, Jason, tell me just of the fourth venue, because I think we got up to 3, and then
right. Okay. What is the fourth? Gorgeous second home. So we've got this magnificent old 1970s Alistair Knox warehouse in Eltham, and we have this beautiful cafe which we just had the 5th birthday for last week. And yeah, it's gorgeous too. We've been operating that the whole way through, but simply just as a takeaway offering.
Okay.
So
yeah. I mean, as you talk about these places, and the interior and indeed exterior of these places is such a big part of the experience. And you talk about Francois. That's another restaurant where it's we love the food, but it's so much about the experience. Can you talk about that? I guess what it's been like for you to create businesses that are not so much about, well, they're obviously not about an in-house dining experience. What's that been like for you?
Well, I suppose for me, I grew up in Gippsland, and I grew up in a restaurant from the age of 11 called Powers Court, which sort of set me up for the love of hospitality for the rest of my life. And I was actually the resident pianist from the age of 11 there. And by the time I was 17, I'd done my apprenticeship there. And that was chef hatted for, I think, about 8 years. And so that was sort of my upbringing.
That was your parents that owned that?
No, it was actually a couple that had owned a restaurant called Michelle's in Armadale, and they moved to the country in 1988. And I was an 11-year-old and became the resident pianist at every Friday, Saturday night in this ballroom restaurant.
Oh, that's
and so
amazing.
That was when, Claude Farrell and Rita Ehrlich and, all those guys were the big reviewers, and it was all very exciting, heady days. And we had Esso down there, so that was a very successful place. But I grew up there pretty much all my childhood from the age of 11. So I just got this incredible love of hospitality, and it was the old world hospitality where, at Power School we used to do opera nights and jazz nights and dinner shows, and nothing like the Swagman, but sort of more. It was a sense of fun. There was a sense of occasion. There was a sense of celebration in going to these restaurants. So I love creating an experience in a restaurant. We're never going to be. I never aim for chef hats. I never aim for awards. I aim for just a great, authentic experience when you come into the restaurant. So, and that's sort of what that's the love of hospitality I have. And I think over the years we've forgotten what the word hospitality means. It means, I say to my team every time, if I see a team member with not grab eye contact with someone within a couple of seconds of walking in, I just say, imagine coming to my house and you knock and I open the door and then I just turn around from you. I don't say, come in, what do you want to drink? Look, here's a bite to eat. It's the same. That's hospitality. We're here to be hospitable.
Imagine that you make some food for me and you put it on my doorstep and we have a contactless experience. Like, how do you create the hospitality in that experience?
Okay, so that's, I suppose, what, when the first lockdown happened, we thought, we're not really going to make an awful lot of money just by opening the doors on the corner store and selling my sausage rolls. So we then created Entrecote at home. So we did pre-cooked steaks, or pre-grilled steaks with our green sauce. I mean, Entrecote, for those that don't know, is we only really have one main dish on the menu, which is the porterhouse steak with this herb green sauce. And so we we launched Entrecote at home, which we just launched on a Friday night for pickup at the restaurant, and we were doing between 500 and 700 steaks every Friday night
Wow.
for pickup only. So that went off pretty well. And we just have an incredible. I mean, I think brand and loyalty and an honest offering creates the trust in the community that people will trust that if you're putting something out there, it's going to be of a quality. So that sort of went crazy beyond our belief. So then we opened up to 2 nights, Friday and Saturday nights. And then Providore came along, and Shane Delia's Providore, which has been mind-blowingly fantastic for us because it's opened us up to the whole of Melbourne, plus delivery. And now this week they've just launched to pretty much regional Victoria, including Gippsland, Bendigo, the Mornington Peninsula, which which is going to be sort of priceless for us because if you think of this Christmas, all our customers will be down in Mornington Peninsula, and all the venues down there will probably be still following social distancing rules. So it'll be hard for them to keep up with the people that's visiting those areas. And I think something where you can order a restaurant experience and it arrives on your doorstep the next day, and produce that without having to be stuck in a kitchen. I think that's going to be quite popular down there. So I think even though restaurants will open up in the next month or so, slowly, the Providore experience, or which a lot of restaurants have adapted to, and how have we done it? I mean, we were one of the first to do it, I suppose. So we do. When we first did it, we did a playlist. So at 5 o'clock, you got a text from us saying we've curated a French playlist for you. We put a tapered candle in the box. We made the instructions fun. I did a video on how to do it, and it just becomes there's a sense of fun. It's not just open a box and put it in the oven. Put it. I think once again it comes back to that sense of fun in hospitality, which sometimes I think we have lost over the period of time.
So
So I
it's
think
about
it's.
finding that sense of fun in a different way, where someone doesn't have to be in the room with you for them to be wrapped up in your
Correct.
experience.
Yep, and I think it will continue. I think we will open, and I think the likes of a Providore platform will continue. I think people. I mean, the amount of. I mean, as a restaurant, you'd get, let's say we get 10 emails a week when we're open as per normal pre-COVID. We'd get lovely emails saying, thanks, we were at your restaurant, had a lovely time. We'd also get a couple say we had a shit time, but, that's always going to happen. But the amount of emails we get through the Providore and through the Entrecote at Home platform, we must get 20 to 30 a week of just people saying, unbelievable experience. We were so hesitant to order a steak that had been pre-grilled, and it was just the most fantastic experience because you really just open up the box, pop it in the oven, and you've had it. I think you've had
Yeah.
it, Dani.
Yeah, I've
And
had it. It was great. Yeah,
yeah,
it really worked. And I did the playlist and I lit the
very
candle. And I
good.
think at that time you even had a roll of toilet paper in the box. So,
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
it
yeah,
was all
we did
very
wrapped in
it was
Entrecote
all
branding.
very
Yeah,
funny.
that's right.
Exactly. So it was there's definitely it didn't just feel like some food in a box. Definitely there was an
Yeah.
experience as part of
So
it. But
so I
yeah.
think that will continue. I mean, I don't think it's going to become. It'll be an arm of most restaurants. I mean, we will be continuing it. We're looking at now. Providore is so big for us, but even when we opened in the first, when we were allowed to open in June, it dropped a little bit, but not as much as probably we thought it would. But I think with the reach now of Providore being able to be in Bendigo and order Entrecote at home, or it might be Flower Drum. I mean, the fact that you can have Flower Drum or Maha or any of these fantastic restaurants delivered to your door within 24 hours and be in Bendigo is a pretty outstanding offer, which would not have happened probably if COVID hadn't come along. And I think we're
And
going to see it continue on.
there's retail that you've done as well, isn't there? That's not related to food delivery to people's homes. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so we had the gorgeous boys from Boccaccio out in Balwyn. They approached me just as the first lockdown happened, and said, "Oh, would you be interested in putting your green sauce in a retail offering?" I said, I never thought of it before, so I did very primitive packaging concept and popped it through to them. And I think the first drop off was a box of 24, and they marketed it, and I think we did the first week we did 200 They sold 200 units in the first week, and so then we sort of upped the ante and started doing a bit more professional packaging and a bit of lab testing and the whole works. And now we've actually now got 36 supermarkets on board, and we've got 20 or 30 hours a week, someone in sales, and 20 or 30 hours in logistics as well. So the Entrecote
Wow.
Source Plus online, so it's taken off into it, and it's another arm of what we do now, which is quite amazing.
Have you enjoyed that, reframing what you do, or has it just been born out of stress and necessity, or has it been fun along the way?
Look, I've been pretty upbeat. I mean, I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I say what I think. But I've honestly, it's been like I've opened 6 or 7 businesses in the last couple of months. I've felt like I've opened and closed, and I usually only open 1 or 2 a year. And I'm about to open another 4 new businesses because we're about to reopen again. So it does feel like I've had huge ups and I've had huge downs. But really, I've got an amazing team around me. I've got amazing network, and everyone's kept me up, and it's been pretty amazing. I've only really had, and I'll be honest, I had when the extension of the last lockdown came into place.
Mm.
I had a week where I went downhill very badly, and I spent a week in bed. I fell into a
Did you?
slump, and yeah, it was. I just didn't. I just felt I didn't have any more tricks to pull out of my hat. I just had done everything I could, and I just felt I went down in the slump with Melbourne. I felt the whole slump hit Melbourne. I felt the whole. Everyone just walked around a bit sadder.
Yeah, I
And well,
think
not
you're
that I
right.
saw him because I couldn't get out of bed. I really honestly spent 5 days in bed, and I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't face anyone. And my team, I mean, they're used to me a little bit as well because I do have days like that. I mean, I'm a social person, but I do have my down times. So then they left me alone, and then I just had my 5 days or 6 days keeping quiet, and then during that time, built the energy to get back up and start building again. I suppose, yeah.
What happens? Is it like you sort of go to bed one night and think, you know what, tomorrow I'm going to get up, or is it suddenly you just spring out of bed, or something, or is there a trigger? Like, what makes you sort of muster your energy again?
I think it must be that you go on adrenaline for so long, that it just all of a sudden it drains you, I suppose, and then I completely lose. I need me time, and I can't speak to
Yeah,
anyone. Yeah, so I suppose, um, and I know the triggers because this has sort of been me all my life. This is not just because of COVID, but I've been lucky. I've been really lucky because, and I have to call it luck because the team around me and the people around me drive me. And I'm always I'm full of ideas and full of concepts, but the people around me then pull them together. And
mm.
that's where I think if you've got a team around you that support you and have the same beliefs and don't doubt your crazy ideas at times, um, it makes you then think, well, okay, it's now time to get back on with it, and you see light at the end of a tunnel. Always, we will come out of this. I don't think everyone will come out of this, and I think it's going to be sad to see a lot of places drop, and I think a lot of places after Christmas, um, will not succeed and will not come through it. Um, but I think we will come. We will come together, and we will band through it. We'll get through it. I just don't think it's I think there'll be a lot of changes to what the future of the industry. I think prices sort of have to go up to I was saying this to someone the other day. I found a 1999 Le Restaurant from Sofitel menu that we must have went to a dinner there when we used to collect menus because they weren't online, and
Yeah.
the main courses were $36 to $42.
Oh,
That's
that's just
and that's
says it,
pre
doesn't it? Oh,
that's pre GST.
oh my
GST came out in
goodness.
2000. So, and we're serving, 22 years later, 21 years later, we're serving main courses between sort of 36 and $48.
Yeah, that
So
is
it
so
really,
crazy.
it really sort of makes you realise what we just haven't. we just haven't gone with inflation. So there's prices will have to go up. I think you'll see more set menus. I'm not saying that they'll be 3 courses or 4 courses. They might be smaller dishes over a set price, because a chair now in a restaurant is incredibly valuable. I mean, even the time we opened for that period in June, we went to being a set price lunch and a set price dinner menu, and honestly, we couldn't have fitted more people in the restaurant if we tried. We can only fit them as many as we're allowed, but our spend per head, went up from a normal spend per head was $90 a head, and went up to $135 a head for that period, just because of the set menu. So hopefully we might see, and I think it's people banding together, and saying, we as an industry, we are a service industry, just like a hotel or a plane, and on weekends, we need to charge these, 10% surcharges for weekends to cover wage costs and that sort of thing, because the people that are paying people, which we all are, I suppose now, after all the press from last year, or this year and last year, you'd hope that everyone's paying state wages correctly, and to pay wages correctly, and for us to pay these penalties, we really need to make it up somewhere along the line.
Well, the industry, go on.
Well, the industry,
are you going to be the first one to put a weekend surcharge on the menu, Jason?
We're certainly not the first. I mean, I could give you a handful of restaurants in Melbourne that have been doing it for up to a year already now, and I've had a surcharge on the menu on weekends for the last 6 months. Okay. Oh, sorry, not the last 6 months, but the 6 months prior. But yeah, I mean, Botanical are doing it, and European do it. There's so many restaurants and even cafes that are doing it now on weekends. And we've been. I mean, honestly, I could on my hands, I could say that the people that have argued that it's not fair that we're being charged a surcharge on a weekend.
Okay.
Because I think they've seen enough in the news to know that there is extra costs on weekends with staffing, so it all sort of makes sense. Yep, but there's a surcharge.
Well, staffing's obviously critical to reopening successfully, and you mentioned earlier that you had about 60% of your staff who have departed. So, I mean, that leaves a massive hole in your business. Can you talk about how you feel about the plight that those people have been put into, and then about how you're going to recover without them?
Yeah, so I suppose that the most devastating part is 2 of our venues were European, so Boozy and Entrecote, and majority of our staff were French, and so we supported them on the books, like keeping them on with hours during the first lockdown, and they got through it, and but I think then when the second lockdown came, they put their hands in you and said we can't get through another lockdown without any work, or minimum hours. So pretty much all our European staff we've lost, and we had probably about 12 under sponsorship in one venue and another couple in another venue. So they've all headed back now. So, and the biggest issue we've got now is trying to find staff that want to do the job in Australia is sadly it's just not seen as a career move for a lot of Australians, young Australians. So it's going to be a bit of a cat fight to find enough staff to roster and to keep the restaurants going, really. Because I can't imagine anyone overseas would be looking at Australia thinking, oh, let's go over there for opportunity, because the non-support they got from our government. So it's going to be tough, and we just that was the conversation. Was mainly today is we have to restart restaffing to get these venues open, because we're opening sort of 4 venues at once. So it's really going to be
tough. It is going to be tough, and I mean, people will be fighting for good staff.
They will, yeah.
I don't know how it's all going to shake down, to be honest.
No, it's the one part that I'm not confident about. I'm confident that customers will come back. I'm confident that the industry will fight back, and we'll be, in a year's time, we'll be hopefully back to some sort of normality. But my biggest fear is, that the labour shortage that we will now face with these international pool that we had, and that will no longer be available to us. Yeah, that's going to be a real issue.
It is going to be, yeah, it will be a real issue. And I'm thinking, I mean, I know your venues are in Melbourne, but in the regions, I think it's going to be particularly tough
Oh,
without
for
a lot of
sure.
those internationals. It's, yeah, I don't know. It's certainly something that hasn't been that lack of support for the internationals was not really looked at from end to end by the government. It's yeah, without those people, I don't know how the industry can yeah,
Make it come back
it
so
baffles
quickly.
me. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So there's going to be a lot
Uh,
of challenges over next month. I mean, the government is saying that they're only going to allow outdoor dining, and I'm just looking at my window now in Carlton, and it is absolutely teeming down. Now, if we'd had people booked in for dinner tonight outdoors, are they going to come for dinner because it's teeming down? I would say that they're going to cancel their dinner reservation. Um, so it's going to be a very, very this track that the Victorian government are going down of saying we're going to open up parks, we're going to close down roads. That's all well and good, but when you live this close to the Antarctic and we have 4 seasons in one day in Melbourne, and the logistics, just the sheer logistics and operational issues that are involved in setting up an outdoor area. And now they're talking. I mean, they've approached us in Domain Road saying, every weekend we'll let you close Domain Road and do outdoor dining and marquee. The logistics in doing that on a weekly basis of setting up that infrastructure
yeah.
is not even it's not even possible. Logistically, is not possible. And I mean, realistically, out of those 10 weekends they might be offering for us to do that, you might only have 3 good weekends in Melbourne where it's, and I don't want to sound like a whinger. I'm up for all ideas, but you know,
Well,
they,
I mean, it's
they
just a fact, isn't it? It's like for a start, marquees are not just put up by clicking your fingers.
no,
People who are going
same
to
as
be
a
paying, what they need, to give people a proper dining experience. It's that you're not just going to put them on a
they're going to
milk
have to.
crate.
No, that's right.
Um,
I mean,
so,
also,
and
for
of course,
us to do all that is going to cost us money, and they're offering a $5,000 grant. Well, $5,000 will probably buy you two commercial umbrellas, so it doesn't really go far in the scheme of things. But I mean, we're banding together in Domain Road, and we're lobbying the city of Melbourne to allow us to use the park across the road, where we can set up a permanent 2 to 3 month activation, where each restaurant gets
yeah,
a certain thing. So we're in talks with City of Melbourne on that now, and it's sort of you know, you've got to do that because. But I mean, we're a lucky one. We're across the road from a park. I mean, there's only
that's
10%
it.
of restaurants or 12%. I think they worked out in a group I'm involved in, but we worked out as 10 to 15% of restaurants really have the opportunity to do outdoor dining. You know,
Yeah, it's limited. Now you speak about the park across the road from Entrecote, and that makes me think of one of the best things that I've seen in the past 6 months, and that was an image that you shared in the old Lynch's days when Lynch's was in your restaurant, and it was of a grand piano in the park.
that's right.
Can you tell me about that image, and let's just talk about
Well,
what
that's sort of where it came
that
from. I mean,
beautiful hospitality experience that was represented there.
what's funny because I've been 6 years in that venue, and I've had so many of the sort of older people say, Lynch used to set up a summer garden across the road every summer. I said, oh, just okay. I kept hearing this from people, and I got this phone. I got this photo of him with 4 or 5 marquees set up over there, and he would have these fabulous parties with, and he'd set up a grand piano in one where, and it was just he'd have these functions, and I suppose he probably paid the city of Melbourne with a couple of cigars and under the table
Yeah,
offering maybe. I'm not sure how he got these permits because you'd be fighting to you get them now, that's for sure. But I think
yeah,
in a situation like this where the government is saying, we're going to do this, we're going to cut the red tape, we're going to cut the bureaucracy, they've got to put their money where their mouth is. And, they're open, and to us, they're saying, oh, we're opening applications on the 1st of October. Well, applications for a couple of thousand restaurants in the city of Melbourne, how long is it going to take to get the approval back for that application? But then there's all the health and safety and being COVID, and making sure COVID's safe and making sure that everything's done by the books, and then to have something operational um, done by the 26th of October. they'll probably give us a week to do these big structure and what we're sort of planning, and it's just not enough time. It's like when they said, "Oh, regional can open tomorrow night," and you got someone like Arthur Wolf Tusker, who, the legend of hospitality, saying, "Well, you've given us 24 hours. It's not hospitality is not a matter of turning on the pilot light and we just kick back up. It's rostering, it's ordering, it's getting bookings back in. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
and they've been told the night before they can do 20 inside and 50 outside.
Yeah,
And
there's a
then
lot of curveballs. I suppose when you're told that you can open, of course, it doesn't mean that you're obliged to open, and you can take the time that you need to get it up to, get your stuff
absolutely, of
happening.
course. No.
But I'm sure, this for somewhere like Lake House, and of course for yourself as well, as soon as people hear that you can open, the phone's going to ring off the hook.
Going mental. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
So,
and that's the thing.
but I mean,
so we're trying to act really proactively now to make sure that we're ready in a week to start opening up bookings for what we think will be the minimal that the government will give us.
That is so tough though, because that's the other thing. It's like, yes, apply for a permit, but you don't exactly know what the permit is going to be for. We're assuming that perhaps it'll be the same numbers as regional, but we're not sure about that. So, I mean, you've certainly had
it's a guessing game.
Good exercise in brain plasticity, whatever the term is. Like your neurological pathways will be very supple at the moment, Jason, as you've had to change and turn about and turn. Yeah, it's
well, we're so used to flipping and flopping now. What's another curveball, really? So
yeah. Well, Jason, I look forward to being out there with the grand piano, whether or not that's just in our minds or in reality, on a beautiful, sunny, still day. I'm so glad that you've had all these successful streams to your business through the past 6 months, and good luck getting them all back open, getting some staff back in there and creating those beautiful hospitality experiences that you're so good at. But thanks so much for sharing the story today.
I have to say thank you to you, because you've been a godsend during this time for a lot of people that have really been struggling. So it's been amazing, your support to all of us as well. So really appreciate that.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that and embarrassing me. But honestly, I'm just such a fan of restaurants, and any little thing that I can do that helps me get back in them is all good with me. So thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for the time, Dani.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about. We spend a week thrashing around each issue, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
This is a Deep in the Weeds production.